Hello and welcome to Undead Gaming News, your one-stop shop for all things gaming. I'm your host Zombie, and first up this week, Microsoft has won its court case against the US Federal Trade Commission, causing Activision's shares to surge by 10% on the day, and Microsoft shares also went up by 64 cents. US District Judge Jacqueline Scott Corley in San Francisco rejected the FTC's connotation that the deal would hurt consumers by giving Xbox game console maker Microsoft exclusive access to games including the best-selling Call of Duty. Shortly after the judge's order, Britain's Competition and Markets Authority said it was prepared to consider Microsoft's proposals to resolve antitrust concerns in the UK, suggesting that the two parties may come to a resolution. The FTC had argued that Microsoft would be able to use Activision games to leave rival console makers like Nintendo and Sony out in the cold. Judge Corley, of course, disagreed, and in her opinion said the FTC has not shown it's likely to succeed on its assertion the combined firm will probably pull Call of Duty from Sony PlayStation, or that its ownership of Activision content will substantially lessen competition in the video game library subscription and cloud gaming markets. There are no internal documents, emails or chats contradicting Microsoft's stated intent not to make Call of Duty exclusive to Xbox consoles, despite the completion of extensive discovery in the FTC administrative proceeding, including production of nearly 1 million documents and 30 depositions. The FTC has not identified a single document which contradicts Microsoft's publicly stated commitment to make Call of Duty available on PlayStation and Nintendo Switch. Sony opposes the merger. Its opposition is understandable. Before the merger, Sony paid Activision for exclusive marketing rights that allowed Sony to market Call of Duty on PlayStation, but restricted Xbox's ability to do the same. After the merger, the combined firm Microsoft and Activision Blizzard presumably will not agree to such restrictions. Before the merger, a consumer wanting to play a Call of Duty console game had to buy a PlayStation or an Xbox. After the merger, consumers can utilize the cloud to play on the device of their choice, including, it is intended, on the Nintendo Switch. It's perhaps bad for Sony, but good for Call of Duty gamers and future gamers. The court gave the FTC until Friday to appeal the decision. FTC spokesperson Douglas Farrar said, "I'm disappointed in this outcome, given the clear threat this merger poses to competition in cloud gaming, subscription services and consoles. In the coming days, we'll be announcing our next step to continue our fight to preserve competition and protect consumers." Microsoft's president, Brad Smith, said the company is grateful for the quick and thorough decision. He also said that his focus would now be on considering how the transaction could be changed to address the CMA's concerns. While much of the testimony in a recent trial focused on Call of Duty, Activision also produces other bestsellers like World of Warcraft, Diablo and the mobile game Candy Crush Saga. But Microsoft's president Brad Smith also announced the FTC's decision has prompted his company and the CMA to agree that a stay of litigation was now in the public's best interest, which sparked further hopes within Microsoft of a breakthrough. In a statement, Brad Smith said, "After today's court decision in the US, our focus now turns back to the UK. While we ultimately disagree with the CMA's concerns, we are considering how the transaction might be modified in order to address those concerns in a way that's acceptable to the CMA." In order to prioritise these proposals, Microsoft and Activision have agreed with the CMA that a stay of litigation in the UK would be in the public's interest, and the parties have made a joint submission to the Competition Appeal Tribunal to this effect. As for cloud streaming of games, the issue which caused the UK CMA to block the deal in the first place, the judge was convinced by Microsoft's argument that its buyout of Activision Blizzard would lead to more choices for consumers, as she said. This argument is foreclosed by Microsoft's post-FTC complaint agreements with 5 cloud streaming providers. Before the merger, there is no access to Activision's content on cloud streaming services. After the merger, several of Microsoft's cloud streaming competitors will, for the first time, have access to this content. The merger will enhance, not lessen, competition in the cloud streaming market. Overall, Judge Corley decided the process had prompted better benefits for gamers, with a better outcome for video game fans overall if the deal went through. Summing it all up by saying, Microsoft's acquisition of Activision has been described as the largest in tech history. It deserves scrutiny. That scrutiny has paid off. Microsoft has committed in writing, in public and in court to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation for 10 years on parity with Xbox. It made an agreement with Nintendo to bring Call of Duty to Switch, and entered several agreements for the first time to bring Activision's content to several cloud gaming services. For the reasons explained, the court finds the FTC has not shown a likelihood it will prevail on its claim. This particular vertical merger in this specific industry may substantially lessen competition. To the contrary, the record evidence points to more consumer access to Call of Duty and other Activision content. The motion for a preliminary injunction is therefore denied. Of course, following this decision, both Activision and Microsoft celebrated, with Xbox boss Phil Spencer saying, "We're grateful to the court for swiftly deciding in our favour. The evidence showed that the Activision Blizzard deal is good for the industry, and the FTC's claims about console switching, multi-game subscription services, and cloud doesn't reflect the realities of the gaming market." Since we first announced this deal, our commitment to bringing more games to more people on more devices has only grown. We've signed multiple agreements to make Activision Blizzard games, Xbox first-party games, and Game Pass all available to more players than they are today. We know that gamers around the world have been watching this case closely, and I'm proud of our efforts to expand player access and choice throughout this journey. There was also Activision executive Lulu Cheng Meservey who wrote, "The legal system worked. A fair and neutral court has reached the correct conclusion about Activision Blizzard's merger with Microsoft, based on facts and the law. The judge's ruling rejects the FTC's ideology-driven attempt to prevent a deal that benefits gamers and allows more competition instead of protecting the market leader. Regardless of which side of the fence you sit on in this situation, it's looking more and more likely this acquisition will succeed. But we will know for certain on the 18th. Sticking with Call of Duty though, it appears that matchmaking for older Call of Duty games, including Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3, has now been fixed on the Xbox 360. Previously, Xbox 360 players were unable to load into matches despite the active communities across each game. Activision has yet to issue a comment as to why the matchmaking has suddenly been fixed across these older Call of Duty titles, but for now it appears that players can finally jump into matches across older Call of Duty games on Xbox 360 for the first time in a while. But also in the news is NetEase's mystical martial arts focused battle royale game, Naraka Bladepoint. As it's gone free to play, the game is celebrating its PS5 release by going free to play. The change took place on the 13th, and NetEase has put together an FAQ to explain the decision to go free to play, around 2 years after the game's 2021 release. But the key bit of info is that all in-game content is available for the free players, including game modes, events, cosmetics, and character customization, although players who bought the game and players who decide to spend enough in-game currency to upgrade their status will get access to a few perks and benefits. In particular, the free players will find the rate at which they can unlock a new hero is a lot slower, as they can only earn 35 hero coins per week, and it takes 100 coins to unlock a new character. Paid players naturally can earn all the coins they want, and paying up will also offer you a bit of a head start, as both free and paid players will start out with access to the same selection of heroes, but people who spent the money will get 300 hero coins to spend however they please. Paid players will also get access to ranks at level 20 and lobby chat at level 5, versus level 50 and level 20 for those at the free tier. Also in the news, celebrating the 30th anniversary of the Jurassic Park film, Limited Run Games has announced the Jurassic Park Classic Games Collection. This collection adds new features to Jurassic Park and Jurassic Park Part 2 The Chaos Continues, including save states for each title, new in-game maps, and various quality of life fixes. Physical and digital editions will be available, with boxed pre-orders beginning on September the 1st and ending on October the 15th. In addition to the collection releasing on modern platforms, Limited Run Games will also reissue the games on NES, Game Boy, and SNES cartridges. Limited Run Games is upgrading these cartridges with amber-coloured shells and with a series of premium collector's editions that feature light-up cartridges, numbered slipcovers, and a collectible set of posters. The Jurassic Park Classic Games Collection will be available to pre-order in a number of different editions. The Standard Edition, which naturally just comes with a copy of the game, is $35. The Classic Edition is a copy of the game and a steelbook all in a VHS-style box, inspired by the original Jurassic Park VHS case, for $65. Then there's the Prehistoric Edition, which includes everything in the Classic Edition as well as a replica of Dr. Alan Grant's ID card, which is inspired by the Jurassic Park game. There's also a physical CD soundtrack, which features original music from the Jurassic Park Classic Games Collection, mini replicas of original Jurassic Park NES, Game Boy and SNES cartridges in a custom display frame, and packaging inspired by the classic Jurassic Park toys, all for $175. All of those editions are the Switch, PS4, PS5 and Xbox Series S and X versions. As for the NES, Game Boy and SNES versions, there's two editions. The Standard, which is a physical copy of either Jurassic Park or Jurassic Park Part 2 The Chaos Continues on an amber retro cartridge, and a replica of the original game manual for $50 or $65 depending on your game of choice. Or there's the Collector's Edition, which is the same as the Standard Edition, except it also includes a numbered foil stamped slipcover, a double-sided poster inspired by the classic Jurassic Park Classic Games collection, and of course the cartridges are the light-up versions, rather than the standard amber versions of the Standard Edition. And both versions of the Collector's Edition cost $100. In other news, a LinkedIn post from Arissa Laganzard, who's involved in business development and brand at Ubisoft, suggests that Assassin's Creed codename Red could arrive as early as next year. In the post, which sought sponsorship from partners for the upcoming game, Arissa described it as the biggest blockbuster for 2024. The post, which was translated from Japanese, says, "We are seeking sponsorship partners for this title Assassin's Creed codename Red for next year. Assassin's Creed is really expanding the multimedia front with podcasts and manga series. Do you want to partner with the biggest blockbuster for 2024? Assassin's Creed codename Red is being developed by Ubisoft Quebec, which is the team behind Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and details on the game are very limited at the moment, but according to Ubisoft's Mark Alexis Cote, it's the future of their open-world RPG games on Assassin's Creed. Although we don't know much about the project yet, it will be set in feudal Japan, which has been a long-requested setting by many fans. But of course there is another Assassin's Creed around the corner as well, with Assassin's Creed Mirage coming on October the 12th. But also in the news, a study from the Video Game History Foundation and Software Preservation Network concluded that 9 out of 10 classic games are unavailable to play anywhere. Researchers have found that this has occurred as a secondary impact of digital game distribution, becoming the preferred route for releasing games. As a result, the classic games in this study are games released prior to 2010, which was credited to be the year when digital game distribution started to take off. The list of 1,500 games was randomly generated from Moby Games, which is the oldest and largest video game database that's available for use. Kelsey Lewin, who is one of the directors of the Video Game History Foundation, stated, "For accessing nearly 9 out of 10 classic games, there are a few options. Seek out and maintain vintage collectible games and hardware, travel across the country to visit a library, or piracy. None of these options are desirable, which means most video games are inaccessible to all but the most die-hard and dedicated fans." The Video Game History Foundation and the Software Preservation Network praised the present efforts of archives and libraries, but claimed outdated copyright laws are preventing institutions like theirs from doing their jobs. Consequently, the study hopes to achieve expanded exemptions for libraries and organisations preserving video games in the next rulemaking proceeding in the United States in 2024, and see video games treated with the same level of consideration as books, movies, audio, and so on. Kelsey Lewin also said the video game industry's main lobbying group has successfully argued to the US Copyright Office that the industry already does enough to preserve its own history commercially, and additional protections for preservation institutions would hurt their bottom line. We proved them wrong. The industry has actually only managed to make 13% of its history available, and it's unlikely to get better. I don't know about you, but I stand completely behind this. Video game preservation needs to be taken more seriously, and it's one of the reasons that I personally prefer to buy physical copies of games, even with the huge push that companies are making towards digital. As for our final story though, Denuvo's parent company Undead is looking to convince gamers that its anti-piracy software doesn't hurt PC game performance, and will soon kick off a campaign that will compare games with and without Denuvo running side by side to set the record straight. Performance breakdowns over the years found significant performance differences between games before and after Denuvo was removed. Alternatively, others have found little to no difference between versions of games with or without Denuvo, leaving the truth of the matter up for debate. In an interview, Erdetto Chief Operating Officer Steve Hewin said, "Tests currently done by the public aren't all that useful in proving the reality of the situation, because gamers almost never get to see the same version of a game with and without Denuvo side by side. There might be over the lifetime of the game a protected and unprotected version, but these are not comparable because these are different builds, over 6 months, many bug fixes, etc., which could make it better or worse." Steve said that he knows the gaming community won't trust his words alone, so the company's actions will instead do the talking. In the future, Denuvo will provide 2 identical versions of a game to media outlets, one with Denuvo protection and one without it. He said the independent tests done by those outlets will prove the performance between both versions will be comparable, identical, and hopes they will be more trusted by the PC gaming community. The anti-piracy DRM software is hated in the gaming community due to the perception that games running in the software perform worse than if the software was removed. Numerous games in recent years, such as Doom Eternal and Resident Evil Village, have removed Denuvo after launch following fan complaints about performance. Tekken 7's director Katsuhiro Harada even called out the software on Twitter in 2018 as the reason behind some of the game's frame rate issues on PC. An FAQ on Denuvo's website states that its anti-tamper services have no perceptible effect on the game performance, nor is anti-tamper to blame for any game crashes of genuine executables. As Denuvo branches out into providing anti-cheat software as well as its anti-tamper technology, Steve Ewan hopes Denuvo's reputation among gamers will improve and the broader community will start seeing it less as a bad thing. He said in the interview that its technologies are intended to make the industry better and stronger by ensuring the creators of games are making money from their work. And on that note, that's all we have time for this week. If you have any thoughts on anything discussed this week, please leave in the comment section below as always, and I'll see you next week. Goodbye.